Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and this is the third video today, and it will be the last this time. I have good news for you all. England won 2-0, so I'm in quite the chipper mood, as you know, it's coming home, people. I'm sure half of you, or probably most of you, have either no idea or could not care less about what I'm talking about, but for those of you who do, you know, woohoo! And so here we go. We're looking at some new decks today, and so we're going to do 6, I think, because some of them I'm a bit like on, and so I think 6 new decks. You know, I mean, they just changed the patch notes, and it hasn't updated on Mobalytics yet, so so much has changed that I, like, you know, some things could be wrong, some things could be off. It's very possible, you know, a lot of these I made before the patch notes, so it's like, I don't know, you know, if something's like Stalking Shadows. Is Stalking Shadows good at 3 mana? I still think it's pretty good, but is it like, you know, it's one of them where it's like, do I put it in? And then I can't even remember all the changes because there were so many. So some of these might be a bit off, and you might be like, well, with the new version of that, Chris, are you sure you want that in the deck? And the answer might genuinely be no. It just so happens to be in there. But with that said, let's dive into our first deck. So our first deck of the day is a Yeti deck, and this is one I'm very excited to play. I actually have 2 versions of this deck for you, so we'll look at both. But essentially, the whole idea is this card kind of enabled this whole thing, and that is Abominable Guardian, which you have 2+ Yeti summon me from hand and create a copy of me in your deck. An insane card, in my opinion, that potentially could fit in a bunch of different ways. I've gone for Noxus this time. There are some Piltover and Zorn potential with this as well, and, you know, I'm sure some of you definitely will explore that, but I've gone for the Noxus route in 2 different versions. This one perhaps more spicy, the first one that we'll start with, and it's still got the same sort of theme of the 5 attack theme running through it. Of course, Yetis all have 5 attack, and so they all fit kind of what we're trying to do. And so obviously we have, you know, cards that synergize pretty well with that, like Reckoning and Bloody Business and the like, and LeBlanc, of course, as well. So we have that whole synergy, Trifarian Assessor, of course. That is all running through our deck. What is also running through our deck, though, is Ursine Spiritwalker, and this is our way of winning. Of course, when this transforms into Stormclaw Ursine, anything with 5 attack gains Overwhelm. So if you can get this down and get the transform from the Plunder, you then will hopefully end up with a board full of Yetis that all have Overwhelm, and essentially you're looking to just punch through your opponent in a single turn if possible, and just, you know, win the game on the spot. That's kind of the idea, and so we do have to have some enablers for this. That's why, you know, we're including things like Death's Hand and Ice Shard now. Ice Shard, honestly, for this deck isn't that bad. Sure, it kills Sentry, but we can still get the draw, you know, so potentially I think you would use that if you're like blocking with Sentry already in your mid block, and then you just, you know, use Ice Shard. But all the Yetis will survive, everything else will survive. It really isn't too big of a problem for us to use Ice Shard, and of course it is a very reliable way of getting off Plunder, as is Death's Hand. And, you know, combine them with, like, you know, just the general sort of hitting them in the face and hoping that we get Plunder that way. That's kind of the idea of this deck, to get down a big Ursine Spiritwalker and to go crazy once you get there. We have Reckoning and stuff like that for dealing with wider boards of our opponent. We're hoping that things like Ice Shard as well can save us against aggro. Of course, can be a very effective card against aggro itself. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with this kind of list, and I think it could be pretty decent. And so now I'll show you the other version of this deck as well. And here it is. And this one is an Ashe version of the same sort of theme, but with Ashe instead. So we've gone more down the Frostbite route, with obviously Brittle Steels and Flash Freezes and a Harsh Winds and Ice Veil Archer, you know, playing more for the Ashe win condition as well in this one. But again, I think that this could be a very good way of winning quite a lot of games. And I don't think anything in this deck changed. Any of the cards in the patch notes, I'm pretty sure they all stayed the same. So, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of sort of figuring out to do in these first couple of days. So something like this could be pretty good. You know, like a deck that you know already is like decent, whilst everyone else is figuring out what to do. I think something like Ashe that you know is kind of like a solid deck that didn't get any changes, that is, you know, something that you potentially could try out. And yeah, I'm really excited to see some Yeti synergy. And I really do think that this, you know, or something like this, of course, with all of these lists, this is just all in theory, and everything changes. I might play the deck and realize that, Tall Tales just is too slow and you can't afford to play it. It's very possible that that could be the case, but right now in my mind, I'm thinking, I can potentially even sometimes cheat out Tall Tales with a Yeti Yearling on the board if they ever tap out on like a turn 3, and all of a sudden here I am with a 5/5 on turn 3. Hey, surprise! That's what I'm thinking at the moment, but we'll see if it actually plays out like that. But I think that this will be a very solid list, something like this, that you could tweak around and play with, and maybe put in 1 or 2 different cards. But I think it will be very, very solid for you. So with that said, I'm very excited to play Yetis. I might actually try this on day 1, but we'll see. With that said, let's move on to our next deck. The next deck we are looking at is, of course, the Lurk Synergy. And again, this is another one where I have 2 different decks for you, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by this whole archetype. I don't think it'll be terrible. I'm just waiting, because I'm still unsure. This is what I've gone for, but it very, again, could look very different to this. I have gone for a Shapestone version, to try and level up Rek'Sai if possible, because I think that will be one of your main win conditions, is leveling up Rek'Sai as quick as you can. And therefore, I do think that Shapestone will be pretty important for the deck, because I feel like if you don't play Shapestone, you might as well cut Rek'Sai potentially as well, because you're going to end up with a dead draw that, giving the 2 attack is fine and whatever. But this is kind of, your generic sort of deck. And the problem I've got at the moment is Pyke. Pyke is such an interesting champion, because with the cards that have come out, I feel like Pyke doesn't necessarily suit this deck. I really don't know if Pyke fits this playstyle at all, and I'll explain that in the other deck that I'm going to show you. And I genuinely think if something I need to figure out, and will try to figure out on day 1, is how few Lurk cards can you get away with so that Pyke can still, level up somewhat reliably. What is the minimum number that is? Because I genuinely believe if you can get Pyke into a deck with something like a Demacia or something like that, where he can get like strike kills, with things like concerted strike and single combat once he's leveled up, that will allow him to reliably board wipe your opponent pretty much on demand. That, I think, will be where he suits best, if it is possible to play Pyke in a non-Shurima deck. Now, I haven't built one of those decks because I don't know if it's possible. And in my theory, I did build those decks, and I was thinking like, oh, will this be good enough? Will this work? And I don't know. I don't know is the thing. Like, I don't know if there was enough Lurk in it, and I just can't know that until I've actually played it. So I haven't ended up building that deck because I just don't know. But this is a kind of generic sort of list that I think, a lot of people will be running on day 1. Do I think it will be good? I'm not really sure. I think it will be okay, but I'm still not certain about it. We're running these landmarks, of course, to enable Shaped Stone. And I think, I basically have pretty much just packed in as many Lurk things as I can. We do have a lot of Lurk in the deck, and it will, pretty much go off a lot of the time. Maybe not every time, but a lot of the time it will. And I think, you have potentially enough to push through with some opponents, but I think against certain matchups you will struggle. You do have some weaker units. Like I'm thinking against, like, if this is your early curve, if your opponent plays Avalanche, you're in a kind of a world of trouble, I would say. So it's going to be interesting, and it's going to depend on how much Lurk you can have. But now let's go on to my other Lurk deck that I actually feel more confident about, and I'll tell you why. So this is my other Lurk deck, and this one doesn't play Pyke, and I feel like has a much better strategy. It has much clearer strategy going on than the Lurk deck did, and let me explain why. We've still got a lot of Lurk cards in there. The only creatures that aren't Lurk are Misfortune, Crackshot Corsair, and Doomkeeper, which might change now. That's actually one that could change because it is a 1/2 instead of a 2/1. Might have to think about that. I'll keep it as it is for now, but maybe this could change, and if you want to change it, you're more than welcome to. But Misfortune, I mean, I was playing Misfortune before I realized she got double buffed. But she did get double buffed, and I think that this now makes a lot of sense. And I think what really drew me to this was the card Bloodbait. Now, I think a lot of people looked at Bloodbait and, you know, were kind of, ooh, that's an interesting card. But then, you know, I think the general consensus that I've seen so far from other people is, oh, this is a bait. You know, you don't want to actually play Bloodbait in this deck. And I agree with people, because when you start a free attack of just like a Snapjaw Swarm on its own, it's not really that great. But if you have Misfortune on the board, then at least you are getting something. That free attack all of a sudden becomes a level up to Misfortune, a potential extra Lurk as well. You know, most likely an extra Lurk, because we do have a lot of Lurk in this deck. And it becomes you know, an attack on its own as well. So you're doing a lot of things because you've got Misfortune in the deck. And I feel like the problem with Bloodbait outside of that is that, you know, you don't have a Misfortune, so you just end up attacking with like a weird like one, you know, a 2-mana 1/2 on its own, and it just feels like, what am I doing? But in this deck, I feel like with Misfortune, you are doing something, and it is going to help you win the game, and that I think is what is important. And because we have some really cool cards like Call the Pack, you know, that's gonna refill our hand and give us, you know, extra Lurk followers. And we do have a lot of Lurk as well. And because we are attacking a lot as well, because of the Bloodblade and the Snapjaw Swarm, it means that things will get big pretty quick. Things like Rek'Sai will be very big very quickly, will get very big very quickly, and therefore will be a hopefully a big threat. And so yeah, there are changes you could make to this deck. I think I'd probably get rid of Doomkeeper and add in like Ancient Preparations maybe instead, as that might fit the deck a bit better. But other than that, I think this is probably something that makes more sense, and you know, you could potentially run with instead. And I think because Misfortune got a lot better, that this kind of list could be pretty good. You might want to put Make It Rain in there as well, now that that's been buffed, of course, as well. But I think that this one makes more sense. Speaking of Misfortune, you know, I had to make this deck because it's everything you would want in something that I love. It's an archetype that I've always loved, and that is the one-cost follower deck. I've always loved it, and of course with the addition of Reaver Row, I thought, well, there's no way I can not, you know, play this card and build a deck for it. So here it is, and we are sticking with Azir and Misfortune. And I mentioned in my video, you know, breaking down the patch notes, that Azir is changing to 14 units, but that won't really matter for this deck because you were never really gonna, I mean, you may be worse sometimes, but most of the time I'd say leveling up Azir is not what you want from this deck, because essentially you just want a Sand Soldier. You just want Sand Soldier summons, you know, similar to Blade Dance. Of course, I don't think this will be like super good, don't get me wrong, but it will be fun. And if you do like playing the one-cost followers, I think this will be competitive. I think it will be, you know, not horrible. It'll be decent. You know, if you can make all your Sand Soldiers 2/1s reliably with Taskmaster, and then, you know, go in for Desert Wrath as well and make them 3/1s, and like, you know, it will be okay. It won't be horrific. It will be decent. And with Misfortune as well, getting upgraded as well, like, you know, if you can level up Misfortune, you've always got a chance. And I do think that this will be a decent deck. That if you do like this archetype, like I do, then, you know, try this out. I really want this to work and be good with Reaver Row. And I think that this will be a very fun thing to try out. And obviously just try and smack your opponent with as many little 1-drops as you can. And, you know, win the game. So now let's go on to a championless deck, and this one, I always seem to build one of these, like I always tend to build one of these, and maybe it might need to change because some of these cards did get nerfed, but this is a Prankster deck, a classic Prankster deck that is running, you know, your kind of typical package. It's a burn list that is using the new card Prankster Fox as its big sort of win condition. Now Stalking Shadows got nerfed, which is a big hit to this deck, because Stalking Shadows was probably your best card. But with that said, I still think that this deck would run Stalking Shadows. Even at 3 mana, I think it is worth it in this particular deck. because this deck kind of needs it. Now, as I say, we are going for a lot of burn. Obviously, we've got Decimate at the top end here, and pretty much all of our other units are like aggressively slanted to try and deal damage to your face, and or use Prankster to, you know, kill something and then get damage on your face, and use Astral Fox to, you know, kill something and deal damage to your face, and, you know, Imperial Demolitionist does that, and that's kind of what we're going for here. We have Glimpse as well to try and, you know, recycle with Stalking Shadows. Fading Memories, of course, can work very well with Astral Fox or Doom Beast or, you know, Blight Caretaker or Demolitionist herself. Like, you know, there's plenty of good targets for all of that, and essentially that we're just gonna try and smack you in the face as much as we can and win the game from there. So that's kind of the whole point. That's the idea. And I'm very hopeful that this can, you know, if you do want something to ladder up quickly with, like, this is the kind of thing that I think will catch people off guard. You don't have a champion, so your opponent might be like, what are they doing? And it is possible that you could just, you know, smack them in the face before they know what happened and, you know, win the game. And that will be fun for you and not so much them. So enjoy this one. I'm sure some of you out there will enjoy this as much as I probably will. Just a quick one here for you as well, for Poros, new Poros. Of course, now most of this list kind of looks the same. You know, you're obviously running a bunch of Poros. This has always been sort of my preferred way of doing it, with Vi and give it all as like a main win condition. I actually think this could be pretty good. Of course, we have the new Fabled Poro as well, which will grant all of our Poros a random keyword, which can potentially make the Heart of the Fluff even better as well, because your likelihood of getting like Scout and Elusive or something on your Heart of the Fluff, because, you know, you've got it on these, is actually quite high all of a sudden. And yeah, obviously we're running Poros next and Aurora Borealis, and they can be win conditions, so can give it all, of course. We have Time Trick as well, potentially to find something like Aurora Borealis if we're running out of space, or, you know, running out of gas, then we can use something like that. And Vi, I really like here as our champion, because with Give It All, she synergizes so well. Obviously gives everything tough, will give most things 10 attack, or, you know, something close to 10, which is really nice as well. And I think you'll end up with a pretty nice deck overall that, you know, if you enjoy Poros, then I think this will be, you know, a fun deck to play with. And then finally, but certainly not least of all, we have an Ekko deck. Now, I know most of you were probably expecting Ekko Zillion for this, but I've actually gone in a different way completely, and that is because the synergy with Chrono Break and Harrowing is completely insane and nuts and busted. So I thought, maybe I'll, you know, see how that works. Now, this is another one where I'm going to have to see, you know, is there enough predict to reliably level Ekko up? I don't know. I do not know. Maybe there will be, maybe there won't be. That's kind of the only question I have for this deck. We do have the Time Tricks, and we do have the Practical Perfectionist, who fits pretty well in this deck because we have some things that we don't mind copying, whether it's a Hexite Crystal that we get from this Fallen Feline, which is a very powerful card, of course. It could be that, and that would be a good thing to find. Obviously, a key one would be the Sump Worker, which is a great thing to find. Honestly, Doom Beast wouldn't be the worst thing either, so I don't mind that. Or, of course, something like Time Trick to predict more, to try and level up Ekko. All good things to do, and we have plenty of good units to copy. Of course, Sump Worker is going to be our key one, and because if you can get Sump Worker down, and it dies, you know, say 2 of them die, then you have Harrowing, your big sort of finisher. And so I think the way this deck will work is, you know, you have some early game to potentially try and blow out your opponent early on with some sort of burn tricks and, you know, just sort of going at your opponent, get them down, you know, and maybe they stabilize and maybe they feel okay about themselves. Then you drop a big Harrowing, and it revives, you know, a full board. They have to survive that attack. And then you go for the Chrono Break and you basically win the game on the spot. Now, that is a 12 mana combo, so you can't do it before turn 9, but it will win you the game. Well, I can't think of a situation where your opponent would have to have like a full board, allow you to attack with the Harrowing, let everything die, and then still have 9 mana up for Ruination. Like, that's the only thing, or like, you know, some other big board wipe spell. That's kind of the only thing that would save them, I think, at that point. And of course, your units then don't have Ephemeral either, the way Chrono Break works. So you really do have some survivability. This one might need some tweaking because, you know, because that might not be enough predict, to be honest, to level up Ekko efficiently enough. But if there is, I do think that this will be a very strong little combo deck for you to use, knowing that, you know, oh, I can wait. Oh, if this game goes on for a while, don't worry. I've got a win condition for you, my friend. Prepare yourself. You know, that is essentially what you're doing. And all you have to do is survive, knowing that if you can get that combo off, you know, and draw the chrono break, then you should be pretty good to go. So those are the decks that I wanted to share with you. I hope that you enjoy them. There will be deck codes and links down below in the description. So, you know, by all means, you know, take them. I have nothing against them. I think some of them are quite interesting ones that you might not have thought about. So if that is the case, by all means try them, and I will see you tomorrow when I'm actually playing the game again. It's been so long, and I'm so excited to play the game again. So until then, thank you so much for watching, and have a really nice day.